AliBaba and the 40 Thieves. Once upon a time, in the city of Baghdad, lived two brothers, Qasim and AliBaba. These two brothers lived very different lives. Qasim was one of the richest men in the city. He had married the only daughter of a wealthy merchant and had inherited all his wealth. They lived in a large house in the city. AliBaba, on the other hand, earned his living as a woodcutter and lived with his wife and son in a small cottage near the edge of the forest. Every day he led his donkey into the forest to cut wood. One day, while in the forest, AliBaba heard the sound of many horses' hooves fast approaching. He quickly hid his donkey in the bushes and climbed up a nearby tree. Soon he saw 40 horsemen approaching. All the riders had 2 sacks lying across their saddles. The riders stopped at the foot of a hill, and the sheikh, who was their commander, dismounted. Walking up to a large stone, the sheikh spoke clearly.
"Open sesame!"
The stone rolled aside, and the entire band rode in. The stone closed behind them. AliBaba trembled as he recognized the riders. They were the notorious 40 thieves who would kill him if they saw him watching them. After a while, the stone rolled aside, and the 40 thieves rode out, one by one.
"Close sesame!"
the sheikh said, and the stone rolled back across the opening, concealing it as before. Satisfied that their secret was safe, they rode away. As soon as it was safe, AliBaba climbed down from the tree, looked at the stone and uttered the words,
"Open sesame!"
The stone rolled aside and AliBaba walked through the opening. In the cavern, sacks of gold and silver coins lay in heaps beside rich carpets, silks, brocades, and sparkling jewels. AliBaba dragged 3 big sacks of gold coins outside and said the magic words,
"Close sesame!"
The stone rolled shut just as before. Upon arriving home, AliBaba shut the door and all the windows. Then he and his wife and son started counting the coins, but there were too many. So AliBaba decided to borrow some scales from his brother Qasim. Curious as to why AliBaba needed the scales, Qasim smeared a dab of fat on the bottom of the scales. When Ali Baba returned the scales, Kasim found a gold coin stuck to the bottom. He ran to Ali Baba's house at once and said,
Ali Baba, I know that you have been counting gold coins. I must know how you have come by them.
Ali Baba had no choice but to reveal his discovery of the secret cavern.
Okay. I will reveal my secret. But if you do not keep it a secret, we shall both be killed.
He stammered. Kasim was so excited, his eyes lit up greedily. And before Ali Baba could stop him, he was leading 12 strong mules to the forest.
Brother, please don't go. You are sure to be captured by the 40 thieves.
Ali Baba begged. When he found the cave, Kasim entered using the password. He saw what was inside and shouted,
I cannot believe my eyes. There are riches beyond my wildest dreams.
As he was on his way out of the cave with much to show for his visit, he realized that he couldn't remember the password. It took him several attempts, and then, to his horror, he heard the 40 thieves approaching. They found Kasim and cut off his head and chopped his body into 6 pieces and hung them inside the cavern as a warning to future trespassers. When Kasim failed to return after 3 long days, Ali Baba went to look for him. Ali Baba wept bitterly when he saw his brother's remains.
I must give my dear brother an honourable funeral,
He said. Ali Baba summoned Kasim's slave girl, Morgana, and told her about the whole event. Morgana was a beautiful and wise girl, and Ali Baba trusted her. They both knew that Kasim could not be buried in pieces, and that if he were, the whole city would be talking about it. So, Morgana sought the help of a cobbler, who agreed not to ask any questions. They blindfolded him, led him to the house, and asked him to sew the body of Kasim back together, all for 2 gold coins. The next day, it was announced that Kasim had died after being thrown from his mule while riding in the forest. Sadly, Kasim's wife died of grief 2 days later. They had no children. So Ali Baba inherited all his brother's great wealth. When the 40 thieves returned to the cave and discovered that the body was gone, they knew that someone had discovered their secret cavern.
Leave it to me.
The sheikh told his men.
I will get to the bottom of this.
He sent one of his thieves to Baghdad to find the cobbler, who had been heard boasting that he had sewn up a head and 5 other body parts. When the thief found him, he told the cobbler to lead him, blindfolded, through the streets to the house. The thief marked the door with chalk. Soon afterwards, Morgana left the house to go on an errand. She noticed the mark on the door and instantly became suspicious. She cleverly made chalk marks on all the doors along the street. That night, the thieves came, but they were unable to find the house that they were looking for, as there were so many doors marked with chalk. The sheikh was not pleased.
I cannot trust any of you to do these kinds of jobs.
He said to his men.
I will deal with the matter myself.
He found the cobbler, who led him to the house where the first thief had been led. The sheikh memorized the appearance of the house so that he could recognize it, even in the dark. That evening, the sheikh, dressed as an oil merchant, led a group of mules and knocked on Ali Baba's door.
Your brother, Qasim, promised me lodgings if I ever came to Baghdad to sell oil.
He lied.
In memory of my poor dead brother, I will honor his promise to you,
said Ali Baba kindly. The mules had carried many jars, but only one contained oil. The others concealed the 40 thieves. The sheikh whispered to his men to make no noise until they heard the pebbles that he would drop from his window. Then they were to attack and make sure no one in the house remained alive. Unaware of the danger, Ali Baba led the sheikh into his house, and the jars were kept in the garden. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Morgana found that she had run out of cooking oil.
No problem. I can borrow some from the oil merchant,
she said as she went off to the garden. As she approached, a voice inside one of the jars suddenly whispered,
Is it time?
Startled, but keeping her wits about her, Morgana answered,
No, not yet.
She went from jar to jar, receiving the same question and returning the same answer. At once, she realized that terrible danger threatened the entire household. She returned, having found the jar with the oil in. She told the cook that they had more guests than expected, and so they put a very big kettle of oil boiling on the stove. Once the oil was boiling, she carried it down to the courtyard and poured the scalding oil into each jar, bringing death to the thieves before they could cry out. Only the sheikh remained alive. The sheikh was present at the dinner. Morgana, thinking quickly, said,
Let us perform a welcoming sword dance for the oil merchant.
With the cook beating a drum, Morgana began to dance. The sheikh was delighted and stretched out his hand. Morgana grasped his hand and the sword flashed. The next minute, the sheikh lay dead on the carpet. At first, Ali Baba was shocked that Morgana had slain his guest. But after Morgana's explanation, he realized that his guest was none other than the infamous Sheikh of the 40 Thieves. Ali Baba granted Morgana her freedom for saving the family.
If I am free, then I am free to remain here with you,
she said tenderly. From then on, Ali Baba and his family lived happily ever after.